Hey guys, tonight we are diving headfirst into the glittering, treacherous, and frankly quite smelly world of the Tudor court. Imagine you're a young, ambitious noble finally getting your chance to make a name for yourself in the orbit of a king like Henry VIII. You've packed your finest doublet, practiced your best bow, and you're ready for a life of poetry, power, and grand feasts. You'd probably be more worried about not stepping in something unpleasant, or saying the wrong thing and ending up with a one-way ticket to the Tower of London. It's a world of immense opportunity, but also one where you might not survive the first week. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're in and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you isn't the grandeur but the noise. A constant, churning hum of human activity that feels less like a palace and more like a marketplace crammed into a cathedral. For weeks the journey here was all you could think about. Bouncing along in a carriage on roads that were more suggestion than solid ground, you pictured the tapestries, the gleaming armor, the beautiful ladies with their enchanting smiles. You imagined yourself witty and charming, catching the eye of some great lord or maybe even the king himself. Your father, a respectable but minor landowner, spent a small fortune on your outfit. The velvet of your doublet feels heavy on your shoulders, the silk of your shirt a little stiff. It's the finest set of clothes you've ever owned, and yet, as you step through the great archway into the main courtyard of Hampton Court Palace, you've never felt more plain. The men here, they are peacocks. They strut in silks and satins of crimson, gold, and royal blue, their clothes puffed and slashed to reveal even more expensive fabric underneath. Jewels glitter on their fingers and from chains around their necks. Their hats are adorned with extravagant feathers that bob and weave as they gossip in tight, conspiratorial circles. They turn to an appraisal, and their gaze is not welcoming. It's an appraisal. They take in your decent but not dazzling attire. You're new to this royal posture, and dismiss you in a single, sweeping glance. You are, for now, nobody. The illusion of poetic grandeur begins to crack. Then it shatters completely when the second thing hits you: the smell. It's a thick, complex cocktail of aromas. There's the heavy, sweet scent of expensive perfumes worn by the courtiers, a desperate attempt to mask the fact that a full-body bath is a rare and complicated event. Underneath that, there's the sour tang of stale sweat from hundreds of unwashed bodies crammed together. Wafting from the kitchens is the savory smell of roasting meat, but it's mingled with the faint, acrid odor of smoke and, somewhere in the distance, the unmistakable, eye-watering stench of a poorly managed latrine. You walk into the great hall, and the floor isn't cold stone, but a thick carpet of reeds and dried herbs known as rushes. This is a well-known feature of the time, meant to absorb spills and make the place feel a bit warmer. But as you walk, you realize it's also a repository for everything else. Bones from last night's meal, a smear of grease, spilled wine, and who knows what else gets trodden into this primitive, organic carpet. The herbs were meant to keep it smelling fresh, but after a few weeks, they just add a musty, decaying note to the overall bouquet. Historians are still trying to piece together the exact logistics of court life, like how often these rushes were actually changed. Some accounts suggest it was a chaotic, infrequent affair, creating a perfect breeding ground for fleas and germs. You find a spot near a wall, trying to make yourself as small as possible, and just watch. You see a man with a truly enormous belly laugh so hard that a piece of the pie HES holding flies from his hand and lands on the floor, where it's promptly ignored. You see two young women whispering behind their fans, their eyes darting towards a handsome courtier who seems blissfully unaware of their attention. You see secretaries hurrying past with stacks of paper, their faces etched with worry. The sheer number of people is overwhelming. Historians still debate just how many souls were rammed into these royal palaces on any given day. Was it 1,000, 2,000? The records are a jumble, but for you standing here, it feels like the entire world has been squeezed into one noisy, smelly hall. This is the center of your universe, the place where fortunes are made and lost on a single word from the king. And as you stand there, feeling your confidence shrink with every passing moment. A cold realization dawns on you. Your father's advice about being honorable and true feels naive. This isn't a place for simple virtues. This is a game, a complicated and dangerous one, and you don't even know the rules. Your dream of glory hasn't vanished, but it's changed. It's no longer a sun-drenched fantasy. It's a dark, crowded room, and you'll have to fight tooth and nail just to find a space to breathe. You quickly learn that in a place this crowded, invisibility is a temporary and dangerous state. To survive, you need a patron, a purpose, a reason to exist within these walls that doesn't involve being trodden into the floor rushes. Your days fall into a rhythm of anxious observation. You linger where you're allowed to linger, the outer courtyards, the less important galleries, the fringes of the great hall during meal times. You're essentially a well-dressed ghost, haunting the edges of power. It's during this time that you become a connoisseur of royal smells, an unwilling expert in the odorous hierarchy of the court. You start to understand that the king's presence isn't just announced by trumpets, but by a shifting cloud of scents. When Henry VIII is on the move, a wave precedes him. First, the sharp, clean smell of burning incense from acolytes swinging treacherous, a scent meant to purify the air for the royal passage. The almost overwhelming perfume of the highest-ranking nobles in his immediate circle. A competitive fog of musk, civet, and costly floral waters. Finally, the king himself, who smells of his own expensive, custom-blended fragrance, a scent you can't quite identify but which speaks of pure, unadulterated expense. This scented bubble is his personal space, his portable territory. To be allowed inside, it is the ultimate sign of favor. For now you exist far on the outside, in the realm of common, unfiltered reality. The guards at the doorways, their leather and wool uniforms damp with sweat, smell of hard work. The serving maids who hurry past with trays of food smell of the kitchen's grease and wood smoke. The lesser nobles, like yourself, smell of hopeful desperation and the slow decay of the single fine outfit they own. You learn to navigate the palace by its smells. One corridor leading to the kitchens is permanently thick with the aroma of baking bread and roasting fowl. Another, near the quarters of the royal laundresses, carries the surprisingly harsh chemical scent of lysope, a rare pocket of aggressive cleanliness. And then there are the areas you learn to avoid entirely. The great house of amusement, the palace's main latrine, is a place you can smell long before you see it. A long wooden bench over a cesspit, where rank is temporarily suspended in favor of biological necessity. The concept of privacy, as we know it, is a luxury yet to be invented. Even here, business and gossip continue unabated. This brings you to a fascinating and slightly horrifying discovery about Tudor hygiene. While the wealthy douse themselves in perfume, true cleanliness is a different matter. They believe that water can open the pores and let in disease the infamous plague miasma. So bathing with water is viewed with suspicion, a risky medical procedure rather than a daily routine. Instead, the preferred method of cleaning is the dry wash. This involves rubbing the body vigorously with a clean linen cloth. The rich have many such cloths, changing them frequently. The poor less so. This is why linen shirts and undergarments are so vital. They are the true barrier between you and the filth of the world, wicking away sweat and dirt from the skin. A wealthy man might change his fine linen shirt multiple times a day, a public display of his commitment to and ability to afford cleanliness. One afternoon, seeking refuge from the relentless social maneuvering of the main hall, you find a quiet stone bench in a secluded garden. An older man, a secretary to some minor official, sits nearby, methodically sharpening a quill with a small knife. He sees you, notes your newness, and perhaps out of boredom or a flicker of pity, strikes up a conversation. He speaks in a low, weary voice, telling you that the key to this place isn't just who you know, but what you know. Secrets, he says, are the real currency. He points his chin back towards the magnificent brick towers of the palace. You see that he rasps. It's a body, a great big, fussy body, and the king is its head. But the head can't function without the stomach, the hands, and the less savory parts. He gives you a wry-knowing smile. He talks about the endless jockeying for positions, for any role that brings you one step closer to the king's person. He mentions the grooms of the bedchamber, who get to dress the king, and the gentlemen of the privy chamber who guard the entrance to his private rooms. These are the jobs everyone covets. Then he leans in a little closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But all that's for show. The real power, the strangest power, it lies elsewhere, in a place no one of good breeding would ever think to look. He pauses, enjoying the dramatic effect. Your mind races. Is he talking about the spy master, the captain of the guard, the keeper of the treasury? The old man just shakes his head. It's about access, lad. Absolute, unquestionable access. When a man is at his most vulnerable, the way he says the word vulnerable makes the hairs on your arm stand up. You have no idea what he means, but the seed of a strange, unsettling idea has been planted. There's a secret here, a layer of reality you haven't yet perceived, hidden beneath the perfumes and the politics. And it smells, you suspect, very strange indeed. Historians still debate the true extent of this hidden influence, whether it was a formalized system or just a fluke of personality and proximity. It's just a confusing whisper, a riddle wrapped in the royal miasma. The old secretary's words linger in your mind, a cryptic puzzle you can't quite solve. You start listening more intently to the conversations drifting around you, filtering out the idle boasts about hunting prowess and the latest gossip about who wore what to chapel. You're researching for whispers about that other kind of power, the kind found in unexpected places. You hear the term privy chamber over and over again. It's spoken with a unique mix of reverence and envy. The privy chamber is the king's private world, a suite of rooms shielded from the great mass of the court. To be granted entry is to be one of the chosen few. It's in the hushed corners of forgotten corridors that used to gather the hierarchy. The gentlemen of the privy chamber are the gatekeepers, the elite bodyguards of the king's privacy, his card-playing partners, and the first people he sees in the morning. Their influence is immense. But then, one rainy afternoon, huddled near a smoky fireplace with a few other low-ranking hopefuls, you hear the story. A young courtier, barely older than you, is trying to impress the group with his inside knowledge. H.E.S. talking about a man named Sir William Compton, a figure who rose from obscurity to become one of the most powerful men in England. He wasn't the strongest knight, nor from the grandest family, the young man says, his voice low and theatrical, but he had the king's ear like no other. He knew all of Henry's secrets. Someone scoffs. He was a gentleman of the privy chamber. Of course he was close to the king. No, you don't understand, the storyteller insists, leaning in. He was more than that. He was the first, the one who truly understood the intimacy of the role. He lowers his voice even further, and the other men lean in to hear. He was the groom of the stool. The name hangs in the air. Groom of the stool. It sounds both grand and faintly ridiculous. Groom implies a position of trust, of care. But still, you've heard the word used in a medical context, a polite euphemism for the contents of a chamber cot. Surely it can't mean that. It must be an archaic term for a piece of furniture, a ceremonial seat. The storyteller smirks, seeing the confusion on your face. Oh, it's exactly what you think it is, he says, enjoying your discomfort. The stool in question is the king's close stool. His portable toilet. A wave of collective disbelief and disgust ripples through your small group. The storyteller presses on, his words painting a vivid, almost hallucinatory picture. The groom of the stool, he explains, is the man whose primary duty is to attend the king during his most private moments. He is responsible for the royal commode, a velvet-covered, padded box with a pewter bowl inside. He is the one who helps the king, provides the water and towels for washing, and afterward, he is the one who cleans the monarch. The sheer visceral reality of it is stunning. To wipe the king's backside. It's the most menial, most degrading task imaginable. A job for a servant of the lowest possible rank, not a high-born gentleman. It seems like a cruel joke. But why, you hear yourself ask, your voice a croak. Why would any nobleman want such a job? Because, the storyteller says, his eyes gleaming, think about it. No one is more vulnerable than a man on the privy. The king's guard stands outside the door. His advisors are in another room, but the groom is there, alone with him. What do you think they talk about? The entire logic of the court turns on its head. The whispers, the secrets, the quiet moments when a man's defenses are down. While other ministers have to schedule a formal audience to plead their case, the groom of the stool has the king's ear several times a day, every day. He hears the king's unvarnished opinions, his complaints about a particular duke, his anxieties about the queen's failure to produce an heir, his secret desires and fears. The storyteller mentions a fascinating, almost unbelievable detail. The groom was also responsible for monitoring the king's bowel movements. He was the de facto minister of royal health, noting any signs of illness or distress. This information was incredibly valuable, both to the king's physicians and to anyone at court whose fortunes depended on the king's longevity. Did you know, for example, that the state of the monarch's digestion was a matter of state security? A king suffering from constipation or diarrhea might be more irritable, more prone to rash decisions. This is one of those bizarre little facts of history, that the fate of nations could be influenced by the royal gut. But, even with this explanation, the central paradox remains. How did such a position become not just acceptable but desirable? Historians still argue about this. Some suggest it evolved from a more general role in the bedchamber, and the hygienic aspects just became part of it. Others propose a more psychological theory that by performing the most humble service, the groom demonstrated an absolute, almost sacred loyalty that the king could trust above all others. It was a bond forged in a place beyond pride and ambition. You leave the group with your head spinning. The world has been rearranged. You look at the strutting peacocks in their finery, the powerful lords with their retinues, and you see them in a new light. They are all vying for the king's attention in public. But the real power, the strangest and most potent influence, is wielded in private. It's a power born of profound intimacy and, yes, profound humiliation. And for the first time, a truly terrifying thought enters your mind: is that a price you would be willing to pay? The revelation about the groom of the stool doesn't disgust you as much as it reorganizes your ambition. It's as if you've been trying to solve a complex puzzle and someone just handed you the most bizarrely shaped, yet crucial piece. Suddenly, everything else you do at court takes on a new meaning. You came to court in your father's finest investment, but you now see it for what it is: provincial, adequate, forgettable. To be noticed, to even be considered for a role within the king's private sphere, you must look the part. And looking the part in the Tudor court is a full-time job, an art form, and a ruthless financial drain. Your first lesson is in fabric. Not all velvet is created equal. There's the passable stuff you're wearing, and then there's the deep, lustrous velvet woven with silk, the kind that seems to drink the candlelight and glow from within. It's the same with silks, satins, and the finest wools. The quality, the dye, the sheer vibrancy of the color, it all screams your status, or lack thereof. Black, you learn, isn't a color of mourning or modesty. It's one of the most expensive and difficult dyes to produce, a sign of sober, serious wealth. So you begin a dangerous game. You write to your father, couching your requests in the language of necessity. To properly represent our family's honor, you write, knowing full well it's more about your own ambition. You fake the small allowance he sends, and instead of using it for sensible things, you plunge it into the world of courtly fashion. You find a tailor, a shrewd man with a measuring tape draped around his neck and eyes that can size up a man's wallet as accurately as his waistline. The fittings are an education in themselves. A proper nobleman's outfit is a masterpiece of structural engineering. You start with a fine linen shirt, the quality of which is paramount as the merchandrists are constantly on display. Then comes the doublet, the tight-fitting jacket that shapes the torso. It's padded and stiffened to create the fashionable V-shape, a broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted silhouette that mimics the king's own powerful build. Over the doublet, you might wear a jerkin, often made of leather. But the real statement piece is the gown, a heavy, floor-length overcoat, often lined with fur. The sheer weight of it is a performance. It forces you to move with a certain gravity, a slow, deliberate pace that signals you are a man of leisure and importance, not one to be hurried. Then there are the hose, which are essentially just separate leggings joined at the top, often made of brightly colored wool or silk. Getting them perfectly smooth and wrinkle-free is a daily struggle. And let's not forget the codpiece. Ah, the codpiece. This particular accessory started as a simple flap for modesty, but by Henry VIII's reign, it had evolved into a padded, often ostentatiously decorated, proclamation of masculinity. It's both absurd and absolutely mandatory. To go without would be unthinkable. Historians have had a field day debating the psychological significance of the Tudor codpiece. Was it pure fashion, a symbol of virility in an age obsessed with heirs, or just a convenient place to keep your purse? The answer is likely all of the above. Every single element is an opportunity for display. The slashing on your sleeves, the deliberate cuts in the outer fabric to reveal the expensive silk lining beneath. The aglets, which are the small metal tips on the ends of the laces used to tie your clothes together, could be simple pewter or, for the truly wealthy, solid gold. You spend hours in front of a small, polished metal mirror practicing. You learn how to stand, how to sit in a way that doesn't wrinkle your hose or crush your ruff. You learn how to sweep your hat off in a grand, fluid gesture. This isn't just vanity, it's a non-verbal language. Your posture, your clothes, your every movement communicates your breeding and your right to be here. Of course, this all costs a fortune. You fall into debt with the tailor. You sell the spare horse your father gave you. You learn to gamble, not for the thrill of it, but as a desperate means of income, staking your last few coins on a game of cards or dice in a smoky back room. You win some, you lose more. The anxiety is a constant, gnawing presence. One evening, as you're carefully brushing the lint from your new crimson double to purchase, that will mean a month of meager meals, you understand the terrible logic. The court is a stage, and the king is the audience. He notices clothes. He is a connoisseur of finery, a man who spends staggering sums on his own wardrobe. To catch his eye, you must first please his aesthetic sensibilities. Wearing cheap clothes in his presence is not a sign of humility, it's an insult. It suggests you don't respect the grandeur of his court, and by extension you don't respect him. You are literally weaving your ambition into the fabric of your clothes. Every shilling spent on a yard of silk, every sleepless night worrying about your debts, is an investment in that one fleeting chance. A chance for the king or a powerful lord to see you, to see a young man who looks like he belongs, and to decide you are worth a second glance. The path to the royal privy, you realize, is paved with velvet and silk. Your new, ruinously expensive wardrobe works, not in a dramatic, life-changing way, but in a series of subtle shifts. The dismissive glances from the peacocks are replaced by nods of grudging respect. You are no longer invisible, you are a player, albeit a minor one, in the great game. This newfound visibility earns you an invitation. Not from the king, of course, but from a well-connected courtier who has taken a mild interest in you. You are invited to a royal banquet in the great hall. The evening of the feast, the hall is transformed. It's brighter, louder, and smells overwhelmingly of roasted meat and mulled wine. Hundreds of beeswax candles, a luxury you can barely comprehend, hang in great iron chandeliers, casting a warm, flickering glow over the scene. The lower tables, where you'll be sitting, are long wooden wrestles. But the high table on a raised dais at the end of the hall is a spectacle, and the king's section is set with gleaming plates of silver gilt and Venetian glass. Getting to your seat is a battle. You navigate a dense crowd of people, all jostling for a better position. The concept of a personal bubble is alien here. You are elbow to elbow with strangers, your fine velvet sleeve brushing against someone else's equally fine satin. The etiquette of seating is a minefield. Your invitation grants you a place, but where you sit along the length of the table is determined by a complex, unwritten calculus of rank, favor, and sheer nerve. You find your spot, thankfully, without causing an incident. The food begins to arrive, and it's a parade of theatrical abundance. This isn't about balanced nutrition, it's about displaying the king's wealth and power. Great platters are carried in by an army of servers. There are roasted swans and peacocks, their feathers reattached after cooking to make them look alive. There are entire boars with apples in their mouths, jellies molded into the shape of castles, and pies filled with live birds that flutter out when the crust is cut, a classic bit of medieval dinner theatre. You watch the high table to know what to do. The rules of dining are strict. You are given a knife and a spoon, but no fork. Forks exist, but they are a strange and dainty novelty from Italy, viewed with some suspicion as being slightly effeminate. The proper way to eat is with your fingers. You use your knife to cut a piece of meat from the main platter and place it on your trencher, a thick slice of stale bread that serves as your plate. These gravy-soaked trenchers will be collected and given to the poor. There's a strange little implement by your wine goblet, a small, elegant urine basin. Before the meal and between courses, servants come around with these, pouring scented water over your hands for you to wash. This isn't just for hygiene, it's a ritual, a moment of performative cleanliness in the midst of glorious, greasy chaos. You also learn a crucial piece of etiquette: you never, ever put your fingers in your mouth or lick them clean. You wipe them on your napkin. A dirty napkin at the end of a meal is a sign of a good time. A dirty face is a sign of poor breeding. As you eat, you listen. The noise is deafening, a cacophony of conversations, music from a gallery above, and the clatter of plates. But the real action is in the glances, the shared smiles, the way a courtier leans in to whisper something in his neighbor's ear. You see a powerful duke deliberately offer a choice piece of meat to a lesser baron, a clear signal of favor. A clear signal of favor. You see two ladies refuse to acknowledge each other, a silent declaration of war. The dining table is just another extension of the court's political theater. Here's a peculiar detail: you notice the salt. On the high table sits a magnificent salt cellar, an elaborate sculpture of silver or gold. This is the salt, and its position on the table is critical. To sit above the salt means you are a guest of honor, close to the host. To sit below the salt, as you are, is to be one of the masses. The quality and position of this single condiment container speaks volumes about the social hierarchy. Historians still debate the full symbolic meaning of the salt. But for you, it's a very clear and public reminder of your current place in the world. As the night wears on and the wine flows freely, the atmosphere loosens. The talk gets louder, the laughs more boisterous. This is the dangerous part of the evening. A drunken tongue can undo months of careful maneuvering. A misplaced joke can offend a powerful man. You watch the king at the high table. He laughs, he eats with gusto, he flirts openly with one of the queen's ladies in waiting. He is the sun, and everyone at this feast is a planet, desperately revolving around his warmth. You nurse your single cup of wine, staying sober, staying vigilant. You are not here to enjoy yourself. You are here to learn. You are learning how power eats, how it drinks, how it performs its own leisurely existence. And you are solidifying your resolve. You don't want to spend the rest of your life sitting below the salt, eating off a piece of bread. You want a seat at the high table. And the path to that table, you're now certain, runs through the most private room in the entire palace. The banquet gives you a taste of the inner circle, but you're still on the outside, looking in through a very crowded window. Your strategy of looking the part has made you visible, but visibility without purpose is just vanity. You need a job, a legitimate reason to be in these halls every day, a foothold on the slippery ladder of courtly advancement. You spend your days pestering clerks, flattering minor officials, and calling in the one or two meager connections your family name affords you. You are looking for an in, any in, and finally, after weeks of relentless, humiliating effort, you get one. It's not glorious. It's not a position that comes with a fur-lined gown or a seat at the high table. You are appointed as a junior usher, assigned to the corridors leading to the king's privy chamber. Your official title is grander than the reality. You are, on paper, a gentleman usher. In practice, you are a human doorstop. Your job is to stand in a specific hallway for hours on end, ensuring that only those with the proper authority can pass. You are, in essence, the well-dressed security guard. But one level up from the common men-at-arms who guard the outer doors. Your post is in a long draughty gallery. The walls are hung with magnificent tapestries depicting heroic hunting scenes, but you've stared at them for so long you know every single stitched thread, every woven leaf. Your world shrinks to the 10-yard stretch of polished oak floor you are assigned to patrol. You learn the specific creak of each floorboard. You know which spot by the window is coldest in the morning and which patch of sunlight is the best place to stand in the afternoon. The days are a tedious blend of monotony and high tension. For hours, nothing happens. You stand your pace. You try to look alert and important. Then, in a flurry of activity, a great lord will sweep down the corridor, his retinue trailing behind him. Your heart leaps into your throat. Your job is to recognize him, bow at the appropriate depth, not too deep, which would be insulting, and let him pass without a word. If it's someone you don't recognize, you have to challenge them, a terrifying prospect that could lead to you either doing your job correctly or grievously offending a man who could have you dismissed before sundown. This is your first real proximity to power, and it's a humbling experience. You are a gatekeeper, but you hold none of the keys. You see the grooms of the bedchamber, dashing and confident, pass by with a casual nod. You see the gentlemen of the privy chamber, the true elite, stride past as if you are part of the architecture. They are going where you cannot, into the king's private world. But your position, as lowly as it is, offers one supreme advantage: observation. You are a fixed point in a river of influence. You see who is coming and going. You see who is confident after a meeting with the king, and who emerges looking pale and shaken. You learn the faces of power: the Duke of Norfolk, the Duke of Suffolk, Thomas Cromwell, Cardinal Wolsey before his fall. You learn their walks, the sound of their voices. You also learn about the petty, but vital, currency of court life. A friendly word from you can save a junior clerk from a long wait. A small service, like holding a gown or running a minor errand for a passing Lord Secretary, gets you noticed. You are building a network, not of powerful patrons, but of the people who serve powerful patrons. The secretaries, the pages, the other ushers. They are the nervous system of the court, and they know things. You learn a strange and useful tidbit: the importance of the king's daily schedule, known as the ordinances of the household. This document dictates the rhythm of the court. It prescribes what time the king wakes, when he hears mass, and when he takes counsel. Your little stretch of hallway becomes a clock, its activity dictated by this unseen schedule. You know that the quietest time is when the king is in a council meeting. The busiest is just before dinner. This knowledge is a small power in itself. Historians still study these household ordinances to understand the intricate machinery of the Tudor court, but for you, they are a practical guide to survival. One afternoon, a man you recognize as one of the king's personal physicians hurries down the hall, his face tight with worry. HS, followed by a page carrying a velvet bag that sea-links softly. You bow, and he barely notices you. Moments later, you see one of the gentlemen of the privy chamber emerge from the sacred inner doors. He looks exhausted. He catches your eye for a fraction of a second, a flicker of shared humanity in this impersonal place. It's in these moments that your resolve hardens. You are so close. The physical distance between you and the king might only be 50 feet in 3 oak doors, but the social distance is a chasm. You are standing in the antechamber of greatness, breathing its air, but you are not a part of it. Every day you stand in this corridor is a reminder of your goal. You don't want to guard the door. You want to be the one who is allowed to walk through it. That the key to that door is not held by a guard, but by the man who carries the king's chamber pot. Standing guard in your corridor, you become a student of political geography. The court isn't just a collection of individuals, it's an archipelago of power, a series of islands clustered around the great mainland of the king. Each island is a family, a faction, with its own agenda, its own allies, and its own sworn enemies. Your survival, and any hope of advancement, depends on learning how to navigate the treacherous waters between them. The two great continents on your political map are the Boleyn faction and the Aragonese faction. Even a junior usher can feel the tectonic tension when men loyal to Queen Catherine of Aragon pass down your hall. There's a certain grim, formal piety about them. They are the old guard, the defenders of tradition and the alliance with Spain. Their clothes are rich but sober. Their talk is of faith and established order. They see the king's infatuation with Anne Boleyn not just as a personal matter, but as a threat to the soul of the kingdom. Then there are the Boleynists and their allies. They are the ascendant power, the agents of change. They are younger, more daring. Their clothes are more flamboyant, their laughter a little louder. They walk with a swagger that comes from knowing they are backing the winning horse. They talk of reform, of new ideas, of sweeping away the old and embracing a glorious future with a new queen and, hopefully, a melee. When members of these two factions pass each other in your corridor, the temperature seems to drop. The polite nods are stiff, the smiles are thin masks, and the air crackles with unspoken hostility. As a nobody, your best strategy is neutrality. You are Switzerland in a double-toned hose. You bow with equal respect to Thomas More, a staunch supporter of the Queen, and to Thomas Cromwell, the pragmatic architect of the King's new agenda. You are a blank slate, a polite and efficient fixture of the hallway. To declare for one side would be to make enemies of the other, a gamble you cannot afford. But neutrality is not a passive state, it's an active, exhausting performance. You learn to listen to the political leanings in casual conversation. A stray comment about the arrogant Cardinal Wolsey or praise for the charming and witty mistress and tells you everything you need to know about a person's allegiance. You file these observations away, creating a complex mental map of who is who. One of the strange and lesser-known aspects of court life is the role of symbolic gifts. You see pages hurrying by with small, beautifully wrapped packages. These aren't just presents, they are political statements. A gift of a rare bird to the king might be a subtle plea for attention. A book of devotional poetry sent to Queen Catherine is a sign of solidarity. Historians often struggle to decode the full meaning of these gifts, as their significance was so tied to the specific context of the moment. For you, they are another set of clues. You see an Anne Boleyn supporter carrying a small, exquisitely crafted silver rattle. It's a clear, if presumptuous, message we are confident a prince is coming. Your own family, being minor gentry, has no strong allegiance, which is a blessing. It means you are not automatically an enemy to anyone. But it also means you have no powerful built-in network to protect you. You are a free agent, which is a polite term for being utterly alone. You witness the game of patronage up close. A young man not much older than you arrives at court. But instead of haunting the corridors as you did, he is immediately taken under the wing of his uncle, a powerful baron. He is introduced, he is given a minor but respectable position. He is included in conversations. His path is smoothed by the power of his family. You watch him with a potent mix of envy and resentment. Your moment of choice, or rather, the moment choice is forced upon you, comes unexpectedly. One blustery afternoon, the Duke of Norfolk, Anne Boleyn's formidable uncle, storms down your corridor. He is in a foul mood, his face a thundercloud. A stack of papers has slipped from his secretary's grasp, scattering across the floor. Without a second thought, you leap forward, quickly and quietly gathering the scattered documents. You arrange them neatly and then back to the flustered secretary, keeping your eyes downcast. You expect to be ignored, but the Duke stops. He looks at you, really looks at you for the first time. You, Usher. What's your name? He barks. You tell him, your voice steady despite the frantic pounding of your heart. He grunts. You're quick. And you don't stand there gulping like a fish. Good. And with that, he sweeps on. It's nothing. It's a 30-second interaction, but in the world of the court, it is everything. You have been noticed by a titan. And you have, in that small, helpful act, subtly aligned yourself. You didn't praise his niece or curse the queen. You were simply useful to the right person at the right time. Over the next few weeks, the tenor of your life changes. The Duke's secretary gives you a friendly nod when he passes. A gentleman usher with known Boleyn sympathy strikes up a conversation with you. You are no longer just a blank slate. You have a faint, almost invisible mark on you potentially useful to the Boleyn interest. It's a dangerous step. The court is a place of shifting fortunes. The Boleyns are on top now, but for how long the king is notoriously fickle. Academic debate rages to this day about how much of the Reformation was driven by genuine religious conviction versus pure political expediency. Was Henry VIII a reformer, or just a man desperate for an heir and a new wife for the people living it? Like you, the theological arguments were less important than the daily, terrifying question, who will the king favor tomorrow? You've placed a small bet. Now you have to pray it pays off. Your silent, useful service to the Duke of Norfolk doesn't go unnoticed. It doesn't turn you a promotion, not yet, but it does grant you a subtle upgrade in your duties. You are occasionally tasked with carrying messages or assisting in the preparations for the king's leisure activities. This is how you find yourself on the edge of a royal hunt, one of the most important rituals of the Tudor court. The hunt is far more than a sport, it's a spectacle of power, a display of masculine vigor, and a crucial political theater. The King Henry VIII is a magnificent and intimidating figure on horseback. Dressed in rich green velvet, he seems less like a man and more like a force of nature. His energy is boundless. While other men might tire after hours in the saddle, Henry seems to draw strength from the chase. Your job is menial. You are helping the grooms with the dogs, a sprawling, chaotic pack of greyhounds, beagles, and mastiffs. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth, horses and excited, barking dogs. The sheer scale of the operation is staggering. Hundreds of people are involved: the nobles who ride with the king, the beaters who flush the game from the forest, the grooms, the dog handlers, the servants who will prepare the lavish feast afterward. From your lowly vantage point, you observe the intricate etiquette of the hunt. The right to ride close to the king is a fiercely contested privilege. You watch the jockeying for position as the nobles mount their horses, each trying to subtly place himself where the king might notice him. A well-timed comment about the quality of a hawk or the speed of a hound can win a moment of royal favor. Henry is a superb athlete, and he expects the men around him to keep up. He is an expert archer, a powerful jouster, and a relentless hunter. To be invited on the hunt is a test. Can you handle your horse? Can you endure the physical exertion? Can you conduct yourself with the right blend of camaraderie and deference? His companions are not just friends, they are an extension of his own royal image. You see the king laugh, a great booming sound that echoes through the trees as his hawk successfully brings down a pheasant. In these moments, he is not the grim monarch of the council chamber, but a man reveling in his physical prowess. This is the side of the king most of his subjects never see. It's a carefully curated image of virility and strength, especially vital for a monarch whose primary dynastic duty, securing a male heir, remains unfulfilled. After the hunt, you are assigned to help in the real tennis court. This isn't the lawn tennis we know today. It's a complex, indoor game played in a walled court with a lopsided roof and a bewildering array of surfaces to bounce the ball off. It's fast, strategic, and incredibly difficult. It is also the king's favorite sport. The royal tennis court is a surprisingly intimate space. As you help stretch the nets and lay out the gut-string rackets, you are in the room where the king displays his competitive fire. Henry is famously aggressive on the court. He plays for high stakes, often wagering huge sums of money, manors, or even church bells on the outcome of a game. Here's a little-known fact about Tudor sport: it was intensely regulated by class. Laws known as some PTU laws dictated not just what you could wear, but what games you were allowed to play. Archery was encouraged for all classes, as it was vital for national defense. But tennis, that was a game for gentlemen only. For a commoner to be caught playing would be a punishable offense. The very act of playing was a confirmation of your social standing. You watch from a discreet corner as the king plays a match against the Duke of Suffolk, his closest friend. The two men, stripped down to their fine linen shirts and hose, dart around the court with surprising agility. The king is powerful, hitting the heavy, handmade ball with brutal force. He grunts with effort, he shouts in triumph when he wins a point, and he bellows in frustration when he makes an error. The Duke, a shrewd courtier, knows how to play the game both on and off the court. He plays well enough to make it a challenge, to give the king a satisfying victory. But it's an unspoken rule that the king must always win. Historians still debate whether his opponents lost on purpose. Was it a calculated act of flattery, or was Henry simply that good seeing him play? You suspect it's a bit of both. Your role is to be invisible, to anticipate needs. You are ready with a fresh towel, a cup of cooled, spiced wine, or a new racket if a string should break. The king, in the heat of the game, barks an order for wine. You are the closest one. Your heart pounding, you scurry forward, kneeling as you offer the silver goblet. He snatches it from your hand without looking at you, drains it in one go, and throws it back onto the tray before turning back to the game. He didn't see you. You were just a function, a hand that offered a cup. But you were there. You were inside his private sporting world. You felt the energy, the raw, competitive spirit of the man. You saw him sweat, you heard him curse. It's a different kind of intimacy from the one you've been contemplating, but it's a form of access nonetheless. You are no longer just a static fixture in a hallway. You are a moving part, however small, in the grand, complicated machine of the king's life, and every small movement brings you a tiny step closer to the center. Being on the periphery of the king's leisure time exposes you to another, far more dangerous, courtly sport romance. The Tudor court, especially under the influence of the rising Boleyn faction, is electric with a new kind of energy. The old, formal codes of chivalry are still given lip service, but underneath, there's a more modern, more dangerous game of flirtation and desire being played. The center of this whirlwind is, of course, Boleyn. You see her from a distance in the gardens or walking in procession to chapel. She is not a conventional beauty by the standards of the time. She is dark-haired, slim, with intelligent, arresting eyes. But she possesses something far more potent than simple beauty charisma. She has a continental sophistication, a sharp wit, and a self-possession that sets her apart from the more demure English ladies. Men are fascinated by her, and women watch her with a mixture of envy and suspicion. You witness the performance of courtly love daily. A courtier might write a poem for a lady, comparing her eyes to stars. He might wear her colors a ribbon or a handkerchief tucked into his sleeve during a tournament. On the surface, it's all very chaste and idealized, a game of unrequited loving and noble sentiment. But you quickly learn that this elegant language is often a public veil for very real, very private affairs. The king's great matter, his quest to annul his marriage to Catherine, has made the court a minefield. Every flirtatious glance, every shared dance, is scrutinized for its political meaning. Is that young lord trying to win the favor of one of his ladies in waiting to get closer to the Boleyn faction? Is that lady accepting his attention to advance her family's standing love? Is almost never just love, it's a currency, a tool, a potential weapon. You learn this lesson the hard way by watching others fall. There's a young poet at court, a man named Thomas Wyatt, H.E.S. brilliant, charming, and deeply in love with Anne Boleyn. He writes passionate sonnets that, while not naming her directly, are clearly about her. Everyone knows it. For a time when a star is rising, this association brings him favor. But it's a dangerous game. Loving the king's intended is playing with fire. One wrong step, one rumor whispered in the right ear, and his poetic admiration could be twisted into treasonous ambition. You see the constant anxiety in his eyes, the tightrope he walks between expressing his passion and saving his own neck. This brings you to a peculiar and often misunderstood aspect of Tudor relationships, the concept of the friendship bed. In a world with limited heating and private space, it was not uncommon for people of the same sex to share a bed for warmth and companionship, with no romantic implications whatsoever. Gentlemen of the privy chamber would often sleep in the king's bedchamber, and a shared bed was a sign of great trust and intimacy. This line between platonic and romantic intimacy could be dangerously blurred. A whisper that to people were spending too much time alone together could ruin a reputation, whether anything actually happened or not. The very architecture of the palace, with its lack of private spaces, bred both intimacy and suspicion. You, of course, are far too lowly to be involved in any of these high-stakes games. Your romantic life is non-existent. But you are a spectator, and you are learning the rules. You see how a calculated compliment from a lady can elevate a man, and how a scornful laugh can crush him. You see the secret passing of notes, the fleeting touches in a crowded room. One evening, while clearing away some equipment near the royal apartments, you overhear a furious whispered argument. It's between a high-ranking lord and his wife, a lady-in-waiting to the queen. The lord is accusing his wife of smiling too long at a young Boleyn supporter during a mosque. Her voice, trembling with a mixture of fear and defiance, insists it was nothing. You will ruin us, the lord hisses, his voice a venomous whisper. You will make them think we are turning our coat. The encounter chills you to the bone. A smile, a single smile was all it took to potentially unravel a family's fortunes, to cast them under the shadow of treason. It's a stark reminder that in this court, the personal is always political. Your heart, your desires are not your own. They belong to the king, to your faction, to your family. Historians continue to debate the true nature of many of these courtly relationships. Was Anne Boleyn truly in love with Henry Percy before the king intervened? Was her flirtation with Thomas Wyatt a youthful romance, or a calculated political maneuver? The surviving letters and poems are ambiguous, tantalizingly incomplete. But for you living in this charged atmosphere, the lesson is clear. You are here to gain power, and power requires focus. A foolish infatuation, a misplaced word of affection, could be a fatal distraction. You resolve to guard your own heart as carefully as you guard the corridors. It's another part of yourself you must lock away to survive. The path to the top is a lonely one, and it has no room for the entanglements of love. Your duties, while still minor, occasionally bring you into the orbit of a group of men who are regarded with a mixture of on terror the royal physicians. When the king feels the slightest bit, a headache, a bout of indigestion, a pain in his famously troublesome leg, a wave of panic ripples through the court, and these men are summoned. You see them as they are, not as the revered figures of authority, but as anxious men in dark robes, clutching strange instruments and whispering in Latin. Their entire existence is a high-wire act. If the king's health improves, they are showered with gifts and praise. If it declines, they face royal fury and the terrifying possibility of being blamed for his suffering or worse. Your proximity allows you to glimpse the bizarre and often contradictory world of Tudor medicine. It's a mishmash of ancient Greek theory, herbal folklore, astrology, and religious superstition. The prevailing medical theory is based on the four humors, an idea inherited from Hippocrates and Galen. The body is believed to contain four essential fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Perfect health is a state of perfect balance between these four. The treatments, therefore, are all designed to restore this balance. If the king is feverish, it's considered a sign of excess blood, making him sanguine. The prescribed cure: bloodletting. You see the royal surgeons, a class distinct from the more academic physicians, carrying their kits of lancets and bleeding bowls. The procedure is terrifyingly common. Used for everything from fevers to gout, they will either open a vein or, for a more targeted approach, use leeches. You once saw a page carrying a jar of the slithering black creatures towards the privy chamber, and you felt a wave of nausea. If the king is feeling sluggish or melancholic, it's a sign of excess black bile. The cure might involve prescribing a specific diet of hot and moist foods, like chicken or wine, to counteract the cold and dry nature of the humor. You see the royal kitchens in a frenzy, preparing special broths and jellies based not on taste, but on their supposed humoral properties. One of the most fascinating and bizarre medical practices you learn about is uroscopy. The physicians place great stock in analyzing the king's urine. They don't perform chemical tests, of course. They have a special circular chart, a uroscopy wheel which connects the color, sediment, and even the smell of the urine to specific ailments in different parts of the body. You see a physician holding a glass flask of the royal urine up to the light, studying its hue with the intense concentration of a jeweler examining a diamond. It's a strange sight, but it gives you an idea. The man who brings the physician that flask, the man who can report on its frequency and color firsthand, has valuable information. Astrology is inextricably linked with medicine. No treatment is undertaken without first consulting the stars. The physicians carry complex charts or ephemeroids showing the positions of the planets. A certain procedure, like bloodletting, is considered highly dangerous if performed when Mars is in a dominant position. The king's body is not just a biological entity, it's a microcosm of the universe, influenced by the same celestial forces that govern the tides and seasons. Historians are still fascinated by the mindset of Tudor medicine. Was it all just quackery? Not entirely. There was a genuine, systematic effort to understand the body, albeit through a flawed theoretical lens. Some of the herbal remedies they used, for instance, contained active ingredients that we now know have real medicinal properties. Willow bark, used for pain, contains a substance similar to aspirin. But these effective treatments were mixed in with utterly useless and sometimes harmful ones. You witness a demonstration of one of the more peculiar preventative measures, the pomander. This is a small, ornate ball often made of silver with perforated sections. Inside are packed aromatic substances like ambergris, musk, or a mixture of herbs and spices known as a pound tea. People would hold these to their noses when walking through smelly areas, believing that the pleasant scent would ward off the miasma, the bad air thought to carry disease. You see the wealthiest courtiers with pomme d'arrêt dangling from their belts, a fragrant status symbol. All of this observation, the bloodletting, the star charts, the urine wheel cements a crucial idea in your mind. The king's body is not his own. It is a national treasure, a state secret. His health is the health of the kingdom, and access to that body, in any capacity, is a source of power. The physicians have one kind of access, formal and terrifying. The grooms of the bedchamber have another, dressing and undressing him. He has the most consistent and unfiltered access of all. He is the first line of defense, the primary data collector in the daily medical surveillance of the monarch. He would be the first to know if something was truly wrong. The thought is both daunting and intoxicating. Just as you're growing accustomed to the rhythms of life at Hampton Court or Greenwich, a new kind of chaos erupts the royal progress. The king has decided to leave the comforts of his main palaces and take the entire court on the road. This is not a vacation. The progress is a massive, politically charged tour of the kingdom. It allows the king to seen by his subjects, to enforce his presence in distant counties, to reward loyal nobles with a ruinously expensive royal visit, and to escape the mounting filth and stench of a palace that has been occupied for too long. For the court, it's a logistical nightmare. For you, it's an opportunity. The entire court becomes a mobile city. Imagine packing up a small town and moving it every few days. That's the scale of the operation. Hundreds of carts are loaded with everything from the king's enormous state bed and tapestries to the silver gilt plates and the pots and pans from the royal kitchen. The wardrobe alone, the king's vast collection of clothes, requires dozens of trunks. It's a slow-moving river of people, horses, and baggage carts, stretching for miles along the primitive, muddy roads of England. Your minor but recognized status gets you a place in this traveling circus. You are no longer just a corridor guard, you are now part of the advanced team, a group of junior officials sent ahead to the next castle or manor house to ensure everything is ready for the king's arrival. This is a significant step up. It's hard, thankless work, but it takes you out of your static position and makes you a man of action. You ride on horseback for days in all weather, your fine court clothes packed away in favor of more durable leather and wool. You experience the English countryside not as a picturesque landscape, but as a series of obstacles. The roads are terrible, often little more than muddy tracks. A broken axle on a baggage cart can hold up the entire procession for hours. Finding food and lodging for hundreds of people in a small country town is a constant challenge. When you arrive at the host's residence, be it a duke's castle or a wealthy merchant's home, your work truly begins. The host is often in a state of sheer panic. A royal visit is a great honor, but it's also a financial catastrophe. They are expected to house and feed the entire court at their own expense for the duration of the stay. Many nobles were nearly bankrupted by the honor. Your job is to transform a private home into a royal palace. You work with the king's own surveyors and ushers to map out the space. This room will be the king's bedchamber, that one the privy chamber, The great hall must be cleared for feasting. Space must be found for all the visiting nobles, with proximity to the king assigned according to rank, a source of endless arguments and bruised egos. You learn a fascinating and little-known term, the harbinger. This was a real, official title. The harbinger's job was to ride ahead of the progress and requisition lodgings for the court, marking the doors with chalk. Seeing the harbinger's chalk mark on your door was a moment of both pride and dread for the local gentry. It's during this chaotic work that your talent for quiet efficiency, honed in the corridors of the palace, becomes truly valuable. While others are shouting and panicking, you are methodical. You figure out the most efficient way to direct the unloading of the carts. You find a solution to a tricky lodging problem. You are calm, you are competent, and people start to notice. Specifically, the more senior officials in the Lord Chamberlain's department, the men responsible for the smooth running of the household. One evening, covered in dust and sweat after a brutal day of preparations, you are checking a list of supplies by candlelight. A man named Sir Henry Norris, a prominent gentleman of the Privy Chamber and a rising star in the King's circle, approaches you. A GD been sent by the King to oversee the final arrangements. You're the usher who sorted out the Duke of Norfolk's papers, he says. It's a statement, not a question. You nod, your heart beginning to race. You seem to possess a degree of competence distressingly rare in this travelling madhouse, he continues, a wry smile on his face. The Lord Chamberlain's men say you have a good head for logistics. Is that so? You murmur something about just trying to be useful. Usefulness is the highest of virtues, Norris says, his eyes scrutinizing you. The King values smooth arrangements. He does not like complications. He taps a long, elegant finger on your checklist. Keep up this good work. Complications displease the King, and those who displease the King do not last long in his service. The conversation is brief, but it's a promotion in itself. You have been noticed by one of the King's inner circle, a man who has the King's ear daily. Your competence in this chaotic, mobile world has distinguished you. Historians often focus on the grand political events of the royal progresses, the treaties signed, the petitions heard. But the real story, the one you are living, is about the machinery that makes it all possible. It's about the sweat, the stress, and the invisible labor of hundreds of people. You are no longer just a face in the crowd. You are a problem solver. And in a court built around the whims of a single powerful man who hates to be inconvenienced, there is no more valuable skill. The road is rough, the work is hard, but for the first time, you feel you are truly on your way. The royal progress grinds on, a slow, disruptive beast chewing its way across the English landscape. The constant movement, the stress, and the enforced proximity make the court a pressure cooker. Tempers are short, and minor mistakes can have major consequences. It is during this time that you witness firsthand how quickly a man's fortunes can be unmade. There is a courtier in your orbit, a man named Francis. He is a step or two above you on the ladder, a junior groom in the outer chambers. He is handsome, a bit arrogant, and has a reputation for being a skilled rider and a sharp dresser. He has caught the King's eye a few times for his prowess in the hunt and is widely seen as a young man on the rise. He is, in short, everything you aspire to be and secretly resent. Francis's ambition is a naked, hungry thing. He pushes himself forward at every opportunity, his laughter a little too loud, his praise for the King a little too lavish. You and the other junior officials watch him with a mixture of admiration for his nerve and a grim certainty that he is flying too close to the sun. The moment of his undoing comes not in a grand political misstep, but in a moment of seemingly trivial failure. The court is staying at a magnificent castle in the north, and the King decides to go hawking. The royal hawks are precious, highly trained birds of prey, each one worth a small fortune. They are a potent symbol of aristocratic power and status. Francis, in his eagerness to be near the King, manages to get himself assigned the duty of carrying one of Henry's favorite Falcon nests. It's a huge honor, a sign of trust. The bird sits on his gloved fist, a beautiful, deadly creature, its head covered by a small leather hood. You can see the pride on Francis's face as he walks near the King, holding the prize taut. The party moves towards the fields, and the King gives the signal to unhood the birds. Francis, his hands perhaps trembling slightly with nerves, fumbles with the small leather straps of the hood. The hawk, agitated by his clumsy handling, baits it flutters wildly, its wings beating against his arm. In a moment of sheer panic, Francis loses his grip. The Falcon, now free, soars into the air. But instead of circling and waiting for a lure, it flies off, a speck in the vast blue sky, disappearing over the distant wood. A stunned silence falls over the entire hunting party. Every eye is on Francis. The King, who had been laughing a moment before, turns to look at him. Henry's face is unreadable, but the silence is more terrifying than any shouting. He doesn't say a word. He simply turns his horse and rides back to the castle. The aftermath is swift and brutal. Francis is not publicly flogged or thrown in a dungeon. The punishment is more subtle and far more cruel. He is stripped of his position, He is suddenly completely ignored. The courtiers who were his friends yesterday now look right through him. He is a ghost, a non-entity. He has not just lost a hawk, he has displeased the king. He has proven himself to be clumsy, unreliable. He has, in that one moment, destroyed his own carefully constructed image of competence. You see him a few days later, packing his meager belongings onto a single horse. His fine clothes look hollow, his swagger is gone. He is a broken man. He catches your eye, and in his gaze, you see a terrifying mix of shame and bewilderment. He still doesn't seem to understand how it all went so wrong so fast. This incident teaches you a vital lesson, more valuable than any book or whispered advice. Competence is not just about doing your job well, it's about radiating an aura of unflappable reliability, especially under pressure. And it reminds you of Sir Henry VIII's words: the king does not like complications. A lost hawk was a complication. It also highlights a strange quirk of Henry's personality, one that historians still puzzle over. For all his ruthlessness, he often didn't need to be the direct instrument of punishment. His displeasure was a force of nature. Once it was clear that someone had lost his favor, the court itself would do the rest, shunning the unfortunate individual into oblivion. It was a self-policing system of terror. The episode of the Lost Hawk becomes a cautionary tale whispered among the junior staff. It's a reminder of the thin ice on which you all skate. Your own quiet, methodical nature, once a source of frustration, now feels like a shield. You are not the handsome, daring courtier. You are the man who gets the job done without fuss. You are the man who gathers the scattered papers, who checks the lists, who ensures the wheels of the great machine keep turning smoothly. You realize that the path to power is not a sprint, but a marathon. It's not about grand heroic gestures. It's about the patient accumulation of trust. Francis tried to leapfrog his way to the top and fell. You will continue your slow, steady climb, one careful step at a time. The memory of Francis's face, pale and defeated, becomes your secret motivation. You will not make the same mistake. You will be the man who never ever fumbles the hole. The royal progress eventually grinds to a halt, and the court settles back into one of the major palaces for the winter. The lesson of Francis and the Hawk has been seared into your brain. Reliability is paramount. You redouble your efforts to be the most dependable, unobtrusive, and efficient junior official in the royal household. And you begin to notice that in this world of grand pronouncements and public spectacle, a different kind of war is being waged, a war of paper and ink. In an age before mass media, information is power in its purest form. The ability to read, to write, and to control the flow of written communication is a skill that sets a man apart. While many high-born nobles are skilled with a sword or on a horse, not all are diligent scholars. You, thanks to your father's foresight and the local priest's tutelage, have a fine, clear hand and a quick mind for reading. This, you realize, is an asset you can exploit. Your duties still involve a great deal of standing and waiting, but you start to take on extra tasks. You offer to help the overworked clerks in the Lord Chamberlain's office. You spend your evenings not gambling or drinking, but copying documents. The work is tedious: endless lists of household expenses, rosters of guards, inventories of royal plate, but it is an education. You learn the inner workings of the court not through gossip, but through the raw data of its daily existence. This is how you become familiar with the different types of documents that circulate through the palace. There are the official royal proclamations written on large sheets of vellum with elaborate seals. These are public declarations of the king's will. Then there are the private letters, much smaller, written on expensive paper, folded in intricate ways, and sealed with personal signets of colored wax. A broken seal is a sign that a letter has been read, and the sanctity of the seal is a matter of great importance. You learn to recognize the handwriting of the great men of the court. Thomas Cromwell's small, precise, almost cramped script, the elegant, flowing hand of a court poet. The hurried, barely legible scrawl of a secretary writing at a great lord's dictation. You even get to see, from a distance, documents bearing the king's own signature. Henry's signature is a fascinating thing in itself. In his youth, it was a clear, confident hand. As he ages and his health declines, it becomes a shaky, labored scroll, a fact that would one day lead to the creation of the dry stamp. This was a device that could emboss the king's signature onto a document, which an official would then ink in. Historians still debate exactly when the use of the dry stamp began and how much authority was delegated to the men who wielded it. It was, in essence, the power to act as the king, a terrifying, uncoveted responsibility. Your willingness to do this scribal grunt work brings you into a new environment, the small, cramped offices where the real administrative work of the court is done. These rooms smell of ink, melting wax, and the faint dusty scent of paper. Here, you are not judged by the quality of your doublet, but by the clarity of your handwriting and the accuracy of your copies. One day an opportunity arises. A senior clerk is ill and a set of urgent, but non-sensitive, letters needs to be delivered to various officials within the palace. Your superior, the one who knows of your diligence, tasks you with the job. You are now a courier, a trusted messenger. This new role is a revelation. It gives you a legitimate reason to move through parts of the palace that were previously off limits. You deliver a note to the master of the royal mint and get a glimpse of the guarded rooms where the nation's coin is struck. You deliver a message to the Queen's chamberlain and walk through the quiet, tense corridors of her apartments. Most importantly, you learn the art of discretion. Your job is to deliver a sealed letter from one person to another, and to forget everything about it. You must be a ghost. You do not mention to anyone that you all or day sending a message to Lady B. You do not comment on the fact that Master Cromwell is sending a dozen letters a day, while the Duke of Norfolk is sending only 2. You see everything, and you say nothing. Your face becomes a mask of polite neutrality. This skill is tested when you are given a letter delivered to Sir Henry Norris, the gentleman of the Privy Chamber who had noticed you during the progress. You find him in a private garden, speaking quietly with another known Boleyn supporter. You approach, bow, and present the letter. He takes it, but instead of dismissing you, he holds your gaze for a moment. "You are the usher from the progress," he says. "The one with the lists." "Yes, sir," you reply. "You are now a letter carrier. A promotion of a sort." He breaks the seal on the letter and reads it, his expression unreadable. He looks back at you. "You see a great deal, I imagine, carrying these little paper secrets all over the palace." "I see only the seal, sir," you answer carefully. It's the perfect response. It tells him that you understand the rules, that you are discreet, that you can be trusted. A faint smile touches his lips. A wise answer. Continue to see only the seals and you will do well. He dismisses you with a nod. As you walk away, you feel a thrill of victory. You have passed another test. You have shown that you understand the unspoken rules of this paper war. You are no longer just a strong back or a quick pair of legs. You are a conduit for the most valuable commodity at court, information. You are part of the circulation, the bloodstream of power, and you know, with a quiet confidence, that this path, paved with paper and sealed with wax, is leading you ever closer to the door of the Privy Chamber itself. Your reputation as a reliable, discreet, and surprisingly organized young man continues to grow. You are the one who knows where to find a particular clerk, the one who can get a message delivered quickly and quietly, the one who can be trusted to copy a document without a single error. You have made yourself indispensable in 100 small ways, and then, the moment you have been working towards for so long finally arrives. It doesn't come with a trumpet blast or a formal ceremony. It comes in the form of a quiet summons to the office of Sir Henry Norris. You enter the room, your heart pounding a steady, heavy rhythm against your ribs. Norris is there, along with 2 other gentlemen of the Privy Chamber. The room is panelled in dark wood, and a fire crackles in the hearth. It feels like the very center of the world. Norris gets straight to the point. "There is a vacancy," he says, his voice calm and even. One of the grooms of the Privy Chamber is retiring. His health is failing. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle in the room. The position requires a man of good breeding, sound character, and absolute discretion. A man who is observant but not talkative. A man who anticipates needs before they are spoken. He looks at you, his gaze intense. Several influential men have spoken your name. They say you are such a man. They say you are loyal. They say you are quiet. This is it. The culmination of all your efforts. The endless hours in the drafty corridor, the crushing debts for your wardrobe, the nerve-wracking ordeal of the royal progress, the tedious copying of documents. It has all led to this single moment. The king has approved the appointment. Norris continues, pending, of course, his final personal approval. You will begin your duties on a probationary basis tomorrow. You can barely breathe. You manage to stammer your thanks, your voice thick with an emotion you can't quite name. It's not just joy, it's a terrifying, exhilarating sense of vertigo. You have been granted access to the inner sanctum. The next day, you are led for the first time past the threshold you once guarded. You walk through the doors of the privy chamber. The change in atmosphere is immediate and profound. The noise and bustle of the outer court disappears, replaced by a hushed, reverent quiet. The air itself seems different, warmer, cleaner, scented with beeswax and expensive herbs. The privy chamber is not one room, but a suite of them. There is a presence chamber, where the king might grant private audiences, and then, deeper within, his bedchamber. These are the rooms where the real business of the kingdom is conducted, away from the prying eyes and ears of the wider court. The men here, the gentlemen and grooms of the privy chamber, are the king's chosen companions. They are his shadow cabinet, his bodyguards, his friends. Your new role is that of a groom of the privy chamber. You are not yet one of the elite gentlemen, but you are on the inside. Your duties are a strange mix of the menial and the exalted. You are responsible for maintaining the rooms, ensuring the fires are lit, the candles are fresh, the king's personal belongings are in order. You are a high-status domestic servant, but the house you are serving is the heart of the kingdom. You learn about the privy purse, a special fund of the king's personal cash, controlled by the gentlemen of the privy chamber. This money is used for everything from the king's gambling debts to secret payments for spies and rewards for favored servants. It's a source of immense, off-the-books power for those who control it. The very existence of this separate treasury is a testament to the power of the privy chamber. Historians still try to trace the flow of money from the privy purse accounts to understand the king's personal priorities and secret dealings. One of your duties is to sleep in the chamber on a pallet bed, taking turns with other grooms to be on hand for the king during the night. The first time you do this is a surreal experience. You are sleeping in the same room as the King of England. You hear him mutter in his sleep. It's an intimacy so profound it's almost terrifying. You are guarding him at his most vulnerable. You see the king without his public mask. You see him in his dressing gown, his hair unkempt. You see him frustrated over a letter, or genuinely laughing at a joke told by his friend, the Duke of Suffolk. You learn his moods, his habits, his small, human routines. But you are acutely aware that you are still on the outside of the innermost circle. The true power lies with the gentlemen like Norris, who speak with the king directly. And it lies with one other man, the man who attends the king in the small, private room that adjoins the bedchamber. The room with the close stool. The current groom of the stool is an aging nobleman named Sir Henry VIII, the father of the poet you knew. He is a quiet, dignified man who has served the king for years. You watch him with a kind of clinical fascination. You see the unique relationship he has with Henry. He is the only one who can enter the king's private privy without being summoned. He speaks to the king in low, familiar tones. He sees the king in a state of vulnerability that no one else is permitted to witness. You have crossed the threshold into the world of power. You have achieved what you once thought was impossible. But you are a man driven by a relentless, quiet ambition. You are not content to be a groom who makes the bed. You see the final door, the last step on the strange and unlikely ladder, the position held by the aging Sir Henry VIII. And you know with absolute certainty that this is your ultimate goal. Life inside the privy chamber is like learning a new language, one spoken not in words, but in glances, gestures, and silences. Your survival and advancement now depend entirely on your ability to master the art of reading one person, the king. Henry VIII is not a simple man. He is a swirling vortex of charm, intellect, piety, and terrifying rage. Predicting his moods is the most crucial skill a courtier can possess. You learn that the king's temper is a physical presence in the room. You can feel it building before a single word is spoken. The air grows thick and heavy. The other, more experienced grooms and gentlemen subtly adjust their posture, their faces becoming blank, neutral masks. They make themselves smaller, less noticeable. You learn to do the same. The smallest things can trigger his displeasure. A piece of news from a dispatch that he doesn't like. A nagging pain in his leg from an old jousting injury. A poorly cooked piece of meat at his private dinner. You see him lash out at a page for being too slow with a cup of wine, his voice a low thunder that makes the boy flinch and turn pale. The king's anger is not always loud. His eyes, it's a cold, quiet fury that is far more frightening. His eyes will narrow, his lips will tighten, and a chilling stillness will descend upon him. In those moments, no one speaks unless spoken to. Everyone holds their breath, waiting for the storm to pass. Conversely, you learn the signs of his good humor. When he is pleased, the king is the most charismatic man on earth. His laughter is a genuine, booming roar that fills the room and makes everyone else feel compelled to smile. He will clap a courtier on the back, share a joke, or hum a tune he has composed himself. In these moments, the privy chamber feels like a warm, exclusive club, and to be included in his good cheer is intoxicating. Your job is to navigate these volatile shifts. You learn to anticipate his needs. You see him squinting slightly at a document and you ensure a candle is brought closer, without being asked. You notice him rubbing his leg and you make sure a small stool is nearby for him to rest it on. You are becoming a master of proactive, invisible service. One of the most peculiar and insightful windows into the king's state of mind is his clothing. Henry is obsessed with his wardrobe. The grooms of the bedchamber have the perilous task of laying out his clothes each morning, and the choice is never random. The colors he wears often reflect his mood or his political intentions. On a day when he is meeting with foreign ambassadors to project an image of power, he might be dressed in cloth of gold, glittering from head to toe. He might wear solemn white or silver. For hunting, the practical but still rich green. You learn to read these sartorial signals. If you enter the bedchamber in the morning and see that an outfit of sober, dark velvet has been laid out, you know it is a day for serious business, and probably not a good time to bring up a trivial request. Historians have often debated the extent of Henry's personal involvement in the minutiae of government versus his reliance on chief ministers like Wolsey or Cromwell. From your vantage point, you see both. You see days when he is deeply engaged, reading every dispatch, dictating letters, and debating policy with his advisors. And you see other days when he is consumed by melancholy or physical pain, content to let Cromwell handle the dreary business of state while he focuses on music or architectural plans. The ability to know which king you will be dealing with on any given day is the key to survival. A crucial lesson comes one afternoon. A young, ambitious gentleman, eager to impress, brings the king a piece of good news, a minor diplomatic victory. But he makes a critical error. He presents the news with a broad, triumphant smile, failing to notice that the king is in a dark, foul mood, brooding over some other matter entirely. Henry looks up, and his eyes are like chips of ice. "Do you find my kingdom's struggles amusing?" "Sir," he asked, his voice dangerously soft. He stammers an apology, but the damage is done. He has misread the room. He has failed the most important test. He is soon reassigned to a post far from the court. You take this lesson to heart. You learn to watch the older, more experienced men like Sir Henry Norris or Sir Henry Wyatt, the groom of the stool. They are masters of this silent language. They know when to speak and when to stay silent. They know how to present bad news in a way that deflects the king's anger, often by couching it in layers of deferential, apologetic language. You are living in a state of constant, low-level anxiety. Every word is weighed. It is also a powerful education. You are learning the subtle mechanics of personal power, how a single individual's personality can shape the destiny of a nation. The grand tapestries on the walls depict heroic battles and mythological allegories, but the real drama, The one that truly matters is the silent, daily performance of mastering the king's unpredictable heart. And you are, slowly but surely, becoming a fluent performer. Years pass. Not in a blur, but in a slow, methodical accumulation of days and duties. You have survived the rise and fall of Anne Boleyn, a terrifying period of swift executions and shifting loyalties where your carefully cultivated neutrality was your shield. You have seen other queens come and go. You have watched powerful men like Thomas Cromwell, once the most feared man in England, meet their end on the scaffold. And through it all, you have remained quiet, efficient, reliable. Your name is never mentioned in the Grand Chronicles, but you are part of the bedrock of the king's private life. Sir Henry Wyatt, the venerable groom of the stool, is now a very old man. His hands tremble, and his steps are slow and shuffling. He has served with impeccable dignity, but it is clear to everyone in the Privy Chamber that his time is coming to an end. A quiet, intense, and unspoken competition begins for who will succeed him. This is the ultimate prize. The grooms and gentlemen of the Privy Chamber are all, in their own way, vying for the position. They do it not by open campaigning, which would be seen as crude and presumptuous, but through subtle maneuvering. They try to position themselves as the king's most trusted friend, his most amusing companion, his most loyal servant. You, however, adopt a different strategy. You do not try to be the king's friend. You are not his social equal, and you know it. Instead, you focus on becoming the extension of Sir Henry Wyatt himself. You are there to offer a steadying arm when he falters. You anticipate the items he will need for his duties and have them ready. You learn his routine so perfectly that you can assist him without a word being spoken. You are not competing with him, you are serving him, and in doing so you are demonstrating your complete mastery of the role's requirements. The king, now in his middle age, is no longer the athletic marvel he once was. He is a massive man, plagued by the constant, agonizing pain of a festering ulcer on his leg. His moods are more volatile than ever, his need for constant, reliable, unobtrusive service greater. He has grown accustomed to the quiet dignity of Wyatt's service, and he values routine and familiarity above all else. The other contenders try to amuse the king, to distract him with witty stories or games of cards. You focus on the practical. You learn the precise temperature the king prefers for his washing water. You learn which scented herbs he finds most soothing. You learn the intricate details of the close stool's maintenance, a task that has become more complex and frequent with the king's declining health. You are preparing for the job by already doing it, in shadow. The decision, when it comes, is made by the king alone. There is no announcement, no vote. One morning, the aging Sir Henry Wyatt does not appear for his duties. He has finally, officially, retired to his country estate. The gentlemen of the Privy Chamber are tense, expectant. Who will be chosen? The charismatic Sir Thomas Heneage, the politically astute Sir Anthony Denny. The king is in his bedchamber, sitting in a large padded chair, his ulcer-US leg propped up on a stool. He is in a foul mood, grumbling with pain. The chamber is silent, everyone waiting for a command. He looks around the room, his eyes scanning the faces of the men who serve him. His gaze passes over the handsome, the witty, the powerful. Then his eyes land on you. You, he says, his voice a low rumble. You know the routine. Get on with it. And Fatsuit, it's not a promotion, it's a command. There is no ceremony, no new title officially bestowed at that moment. You are simply the man who knows the routine. You bow deeply. Your mind a strange mixture of sheer terror and triumphant vindication. You turn and walk towards the small, adjoining room, the stool closet. You are now in practice, the groom of the king's stool. The other gentlemen in the room look at you with a new expression. It's a complex cocktail of shock, envy, and adorning respect. You, the quiet man, the one who started as a doorstop in a corridor, have just leapfrogged them all to secure the most intimate and, in many ways, most influential position at court. Your first official act in this new role is to prepare the king's close stool. As you go about the familiar tasks, your hands are steady, your movements precise. You are not just a servant anymore. You are the guardian of the king's most vulnerable moments, the keeper of his most private secrets. Historians have often wondered about the selection process for this unique role. Was it about political allegiance, family connection, or something more personal your experience suggests? The answer is simpler and more profound. In the end, for a king in pain and weary of the world, it was about trust. Not the trust of a friend or an advisor, but the simple, profound trust in a man who would perform a difficult, essential service with quiet, unflinching competence. You won not by being the most brilliant courtier, but by being the most reliable. You have reached the pinnacle of your ambition, a place of immense, hidden power, all because you were the man who knew the routine. You push open the door to the stool closet, your new domain. This small, often windowless room is now the center of your universe. It is in essence your office, and like any office, it has its own specialized equipment and routines. The air inside is thick with the scent of dried herbs, beeswax, and the faint, sharp tang of disinfectant lye. The centerpiece of the room is the closed stool itself. It's a piece of furniture you've seen before, but now you look at it with the eye of a proprietor. It is, on the outside, a masterpiece of craftsmanship. A box made of fine oak, heavily padded and upholstered in deep crimson velvet, the same material used for a throne. It's studded with brass nails, a statement of its importance. It is, in every visual sense, a seat of power, a throne for the other end of the body politic. Your first task is to learn the anatomy of this device. The padded lid lifts to reveal a secondary lid with a hole, also upholstered. Lifting this reveals the functional part, a gleaming pewter chamber pot, nestled snugly inside the wooden frame. Your job is to ensure this pot is always immaculately clean, ready for use at a moment's notice. Around the room are the tools of your trade. On a small table sits a collection of ewers and basins, some of silver, some of pewter, for the water the king will use for washing. Beside them are piles of soft, bleached linen towels. Linen, you've learned, is the fabric of Tudor hygiene, and in this room its importance is paramount. You are responsible for the toilet paper of the era. This isn't paper at all, of course. For the king, only the finest, softest materials will do. You have access to scraps of linen, cotton, and even silk, all cut into usable squares. The most luxurious option, reserved for special occasions, is lamb's wool. The sheer cost of using these materials for such a purpose is another subtle display of the king's immense wealth. A significant part of your job is managing the king's portable commode. He doesn't always come to the stool closet. Often, the closed stool must be brought to him, into the bedchamber or even the presence chamber, if he is feeling particularly unwell and cannot be moved. This requires a team of junior servants, whom you now command, to carry the heavy object with the solemnity of a religious relic. The entire operation is shrouded in ritualism. The commode is referred to simply as the stool, and when it is being moved, a cry of "make way for the stool" clears a path, an announcement that is both practical and a proclamation of your new, unique authority. A fascinating, and somewhat bizarre, aspect of your new role is that you are also in charge of the king's travel budget and certain personal expenses. You become the keeper of a secondary, smaller privy purse. Why, the logic, as far as you can piece it together, is that the groom of the stool was responsible for arranging the king's private lodgings during the royal progress. He had to scout for appropriate houses with rooms that could be converted into a temporary privy chamber and, crucially, had a suitable place for the royal waste to be disposed of. This logistical role naturally evolved into handling the finances associated with these arrangements. So you are not just a valet for the king's bodily functions, you are a bookkeeper, a logistician, and a banker. This financial responsibility is a concrete manifestation of the trust placed in you. Historians still debate the full extent of the groom's financial power. The surviving records are often cryptic, but they show payments for everything from new clothes for the king to wages for his spies, all channeled through the groom of the stool. It was a position that combined the most intimate service with significant financial clout. You spend your first days organizing your new space, memorizing every detail. You learn the king's preferences. He likes the water to be lukewarm, scented with rosewater. He prefers the scent of lavender and chamomile and the herbs scattered on the floor. He is particular about the softness of the linen. Your attention to these details is not just servility, it's how you maintain your position. You are making the king's most undignified moments as comfortable and dignified as possible. You stand in your velvet-lined office, this strange little room where matters of the bowel intersect with matters of state. You look at the velvet throne, the silver basins, the soft linen cloths. This is the absurd, paradoxical heart of the court's power structure. You have clawed your way to the top of the Tudor court, and your throne is a toilet. And yet, from this strange, secluded seat, you will have more influence, more true power than almost any other man in the kingdom. The thought is so overwhelming, so utterly bizarre, that you almost laugh out loud. The true power of your new role doesn't come from the velvet-covered box or the financial ledgers. It comes from the conversations. The moments you spend alone with the king, in the one place where he is stripped of his public majesty and is simply a man. The first few times, the silence in the small room is thick and heavy. You perform your duties with quiet, downcast efficiency, your movements precise and practiced. The king is a brooding, silent presence, but slowly, tentatively, that begins to change. It starts with a grunt of pain from his leg. This damnable ulcer, he mutters, more to himself than to you. The physicians are fools. Their potions do nothing. You, remembering your vow of quiet competence, say nothing. You simply finish your task, offering a warm, damp cloth. But he continues. Cromwell says we need more money for the Irish campaign. More money. Does he think I am made of gold? He bleeds, the monastery's dry, and still he asks for more. This is the moment. Your heart is pounding. He is not asking for your opinion. He is thinking aloud, using you as a sounding board, a silent confessor. The correct response is no response. You simply continue your work. Your face a perfect mask of impassive service. Your silence is a vessel into which he can pour his frustrations without fear of judgment or contradiction. This becomes the pattern. In the council chamber, his ministers and advisers present him with formal reports and carefully worded arguments. They tell him what they think he wants to hear, or what their faction needs him to believe. But here, with you, he lets the mask slip. He complains about the incompetence of his admirals. He expresses his deep-seated anxiety about the succession, his desperate need for a healthy male heir. He gossips with a startlingly common touch about the latest scandals at court. Did you see the doubled on young Howard at supper, he might say. He looks like a popinjay, spends all his money on clothes and none on his tenants. You are his secret diary. You hear his unvarnished thoughts on the great men of his kingdom. He might praise a duke in public, but here he will confess his true feelings. Norfolk has the loyalty of a wolf. He serves me only because he fears me. These are nuggets of information so valuable they could start or stop a war, make or break a man's career, and they are given to you freely in this strange private space. One of the oddest things you learn is about the king's diet. While the court feasts on rich meats and heavy sauces, you learn that the king is often in too much pain to eat such things. He might have a single piece of roasted chicken and some broth, while a massive, theatrical meal is served in his name in the great hall. You hear his private complaints about the bland food his physicians prescribe, his longing for a spiced wine or a sugary confection that he is forbidden. This intimate access gives you a new, subtle power, the power of the gatekeeper. While the gentlemen of the privy chamber guard the door to the king's rooms, you become the guardian of his mood. A courtier might approach you nervously before trying to petition the king. "How is he today?" they will ask in a hushed whisper. And you, with a single, non-committal phrase, can shape their entire day. "His leg is troubling him greatly," you might say, and the courtier will retreat, knowing it is not a good day to ask for a favor. Or you might say, "He was pleased with the music this morning," and the courtier's face will light up with hope. You are the king's emotional barometer, and the entire court yearns to read you to get a forecast of the political weather. Historians have long tried to reconstruct the private conversations of monarchs, piecing together clues from letters and third-hand accounts. They debate the pillow talk that influenced policy, but they often miss this, the stool talk, the unguarded, everyday complaints and observations that reveal more about a ruler's true priorities and personality than any formal speech. This is a level of intimacy that is almost impossible to document, yet it is profoundly influential. You never offer advice. You never volunteer an opinion. To do so would be to shatter the fragile illusion of your role. You are not an advisor, you are a servant. But the king knows you listen. And sometimes he will phrase a complaint as a question. I wonder if that new ambassador from France can be trusted. He might muse aloud. He is not asking for your input. But the very act of him saying it to you solidifies the thought in his own mind. You are a mirror. You reflect the king's own thoughts back at him, without distortion. And in doing so, you become an indispensable part of his mental process. You are the one person he can think aloud with. This is the true secret of your position. It's not about wiping the king's bottom. It's about being the silent, trusted keeper of his unedited mind. The power is not in what you say, but in what you are allowed to hear. Your duties soon extend beyond the merely mechanical and conversational. You become, in effect, the chief intelligence officer for the most important territory in the king's own body. The royal physicians, with their charts and theories, can only guess at what is happening inside the monarch. You are the man on the front line, the primary source of raw data. This aspect of the job requires a strong stomach and a clinical, detached mindset. After the king has used the closed stool, your duty is to remove the pewter bowl. But it's not just about disposal. It is about observation. You become an unwilling expert in the field of royal scatology. You are expected to take note of the color, consistency, and frequency of the king's bowel movements. This information is a closely guarded state secret. You report your findings directly to the king's personal physician, who records them in a private ledger. The conversations are surreal, conducted in hushed tones and a mix of Latin and plain English. The stool was harder than yesterday, master physician, you might report, and of a darker color. The physician will nod gravely, stroking his beard. Darker, you say, a sign of excessive black bile perhaps. A melancholic humor is ascendant. We must adjust his diet. More pheasant, less beef. You are the linchpin in this diagnostic process. The physicians might have the theories, but you have the evidence. Your daily reports can inform what the king eats for dinner to whether he is bled that afternoon. The health of the king affects his mood, his decision-making, and the stability of the entire country. And you are the one providing the most intimate health update. You also monitor the king's urine, noting its color and clarity in the same way the physicians do with their uroscopy wheels, but you have the advantage of immediate first-hand observation. A particularly cloudy or dark sample can cause a flurry of anxious consultations among the medical staff. This role as health monitor is never more critical than when dealing with the king's ulcer ous leg. The wound, a result of a jousting accident years ago, refuses to heal. It is a constant source of agony and a gateway for infection. Part of your duty is to be present when the royal surgeons dress the wound. It's a gruesome, smelly business. The surgeons, often reeking of wine consumed for courage, will clean the weeping sore, apply various poultices and ointments, and bind it with fresh linen. During these sessions, the king, a man of immense physical courage, is often rendered helpless with pain. He grips the arms of his chair, his face pale with sweat, sometimes letting out groans that he would never allow himself in a more public setting. You are there to provide comfort, a cool cloth for his forehead, a cup of wine, a steadying presence. You see the true, physical vulnerability of the man beneath the crown. You learn to read the signs of infection, a change in the smell of the wound, a reddening of the surrounding skin, a spike in the king's fever. You are often the first to notice these subtle changes, and your early warnings can be critical. This is a strange and little documented aspect of courtly power. The man who knew the most about the king's pus was a man of immense importance. Your unique position also makes you a target for information seekers. Foreign ambassadors, desperate for any intelligence about the king's health, might try to bribe your junior servants for a hint. Rival court factions want to know if the king is strong and vigorous, or weak and failing. A king perceived as being in declining health might embolden his enemies at home and abroad. You learn to be a black hole of information. You reveal nothing. Your face, when asked about the king's health, is a polite, impenetrable mask. This discretion only increases your value in the king's eyes. He knows that his greatest vulnerabilities are safe with you. Historians still analyze the medical records of Henry VIII, trying to diagnose his ailments posthumously. Was it syphilis, type I, diabetes, scurvy? The theories are endless. But these academic debates often miss the human element you are living through. You don't know the name of the disease. You only know the daily reality of it, the pain, the smell, the frustration, and the constant, inextricable mountain of a man is slowly, inexorably breaking down. You are the keeper of the king's physical decline. Every day you chart the slow decay of the man who holds the fate of England in his hands. It's a somber, terrifying responsibility. You have achieved the intimacy with power that you craved, but it is an intimacy with pain and decay, and with every passing day, your role as the king's most trusted confidant becomes more critical and more burdensome. Your influence, once a tiny, trickling stream, has now become a deep, quiet river. You don't command armies or pass laws, but you control something far more fundamental: access. You have become the ultimate gatekeeper, the invisible guardian of the king's time and attention. This power is not official. On paper, the Lord Chamberlain and the gentlemen of the Privy Chamber still manage the king's schedule. But in reality, the king's declining health and his increasing reliance on you have changed the dynamic. He is often in too much pain or too foul a mood to deal with the endless stream of supplicates and officials. The process begins subtly. A minister needs an urgent signature on a document. He knows the king is having a bad day. Instead of going through the formal channels and risking a royal outburst, he comes to you. "A moment of the king's time is all I require," he'll say, his voice low and deferential, the document held in his hand like a holy relic. When you feel the moment is opportune, you are not being asked to interrupt the king. You are being asked to judge the opportune moment. This is a profound delegation of power. You can choose to present the document when the king is in a relatively good mood after a comfortable bowel movement, increasing the chances of a quick, painless signature. Or you could forget, leaving the minister to wait for days, his business stalled, his influence waning. Your antechamber, the small room outside the stool closet, becomes an unofficial waiting room, a place of immense political significance. Great lords who would never deign to wait for a mere chamberlain will stand for hours in your corridor, hoping for a quiet word. They learn not to pressure you, they learn to be patient. Your favor, your judgment of the opportune moment is everything. You perfect the art of the non-committal response. The king is resting, you might say, which could mean anything from he's in agony and will see no one to he's in a good mood. But I don't think your petition is worth his time. The supplicates are left to interpret your cryptic pronouncements like priests reading omens. You also become the filter for information flowing to the king. You are with him when the morning's dispatches and letters are brought in. While a secretary might read the official documents, you are the one who sees which ones he reads personally and which ones he dismisses with a wave of his hand. You can influence this process in subtle ways. If two petitions arrive simultaneously, one from a friend and one from a rival, you might hand the king your friend's petition first, while he is still fresh and patient. The rival's petition might be found later, when the king is tired and irritable. You never lie. You never forge a document. You simply manage the sequence. This is a dangerous game. Your power is entirely dependent on the king's trust and your own reputation for impartiality. If you are seen to be too obviously favoring one faction, your enemies will unite against you. So your interventions are rare and almost undetectable. A slight delay here, a slightly more favorable presentation there. This role as an invisible filter is one of the most fascinating and hardest to trace aspects of courtly power. Historians can study the letters that were sent and the laws that were passed, but they can rarely know about the letters that were delayed, the petitions that were misplaced, or the verbal reports that were subtly reversed. How many decisions were influenced not by the content of the information, but by the manner and timing of its delivery? This is a question that haunts the study of monarchical power. You learn to use your power to protect the king from himself. When he is in a rage, he might demand that a letter be sent, ordering some rash and foolish punishment. An experienced minister might argue with him and face his wrath. You use a different tactic. You agree, take the order, and then you wait. You hold on to the instruction for a few hours or a day, waiting for his temper to cool. More often than not, he will have forgotten about it, or will be grateful that his fleeting, angry command was not immediately acted upon. You are saving him from his own worst impulses, a service for which you will never get credit, but which is essential for the stability of the realm. Your quiet, unassuming demeanor is your greatest weapon. No one sees you as a political player. You are just the groom, the quiet man who handles the king's private needs. This allows you to operate beneath the radar of the great political beasts of the court. They are busy fighting each other in the council chamber, unaware that the truly decisive battles are sometimes won or lost based on whether you decide to hand the king a piece of paper before or after he has used the privy. You have become the master of the mundane, and in doing so, you have become one of the most powerful men in England. The higher you climb, the thinner the air and the more treacherous the path. Your power, though immense, is entirely derivative. It flows from once or only the king, and you are about to receive the most terrifying reminder of that simple fact. It begins as most disasters do, on an ordinary day. The king is in a particularly foul mood. His leg is giving him excruciating pain, a recent treaty with France has hit a snag, and he has spent the morning arguing with his council. The atmosphere in the privy chamber is electric with tension. Everyone is walking on eggshells. Your duties for the afternoon include overseeing the transfer of a large sum of gold from the privy purse, which you help administer, to the master of the jewel house. It's a routine transaction you have overseen a dozen times before. You have the warrant, signed with the dry stamp and inked by the king's secretary. You are in the middle of this task when the king bellows your name from his bedchamber. His voice is a roar of pure agony and rage. You drop everything and hurry to his side. He is clutching his leg, his face contorted in a mask of such pain that it shocks even you, who have seen so much of his suffering. It burns, he shouts, his eyes wild. The surgeons are trying to poison me. Their foul ointments are fire in my veins. This is a dangerous delusion, a paranoid fantasy brought on by his agony. You try to soothe him with calm words, offering him a cup of cooled wine. He strikes the cup from your hand, sending it clattering across the floor. You are all in it together. He accuses, his gaze locking onto you, and then he says the words that freeze the blood in your veins. Where is the gold from the purse you are stealing it? Aren't you lining your own pockets while I suffer? The accusation is insane, born of pain and paranoia. But in this court, an accusation from the king is a death sentence. It doesn't matter if it's true. The gentlemen and grooms in the room who were your colleagues moments ago now look at you with a mixture of fear and pity. They back away, putting a physical distance between themselves and the target of the king's wrath. In an instant, you are utterly alone. Your Majesty, you begin, trying to keep your voice steady. The warrant is signed. I was overseeing the transfer as ordered. Lies, he bellows, pointing a trembling finger at you. I sign no warrant. You conspire with the others to rob me blind. In that moment, you understand the fragility of your entire existence. Your years of loyal service, the trust you have so carefully built, can be incinerated in a single moment of royal rage. Your power, your influence, your very life are all hanging by the thread of this one man's volatile temper. This is the reality of Banjin Rubanghua. Accompanying a monarch is like accompanying a tiger. It is a phrase you have heard, but now you feel its literal visceral truth. The tiger is wounded, cornered, and lashing out at the one closest to it. Panic gives way to a strange, cold clarity. Arguing is useless. Logic is futile. Your only hope is to appeal not to his reason, but to his memory of your service. You fall to your knees, a position of complete submission. You do not try to defend yourself. Your Majesty's wisdom is absolute, you say, your voice clear and calm, though your heart feels like it might beat its way out of your chest. Punish me as you see fit. My only desire has ever been to serve you faithfully. You have done the only thing you can do, place your life entirely in his hands, without excuse or justification. It's a terrifying gamble. There is a long, agonizing silence, broken only by the king's ragged breathing. He glares at you, his eyes still filled with suspicion and pain. The other courtiers hold their breath. Your life hangs in this silence. Then, slowly, the fire in his eyes begins to cool, replaced by a weary confusion. He slumps back in his chair, the wave of agony receding slightly. He looks at you, kneeling on the floor. and a flicker of something, perhaps memory, perhaps doubt, crosses his face. He knows you. He knows your years of silent, unwavering service. He does not apologize. Kings do not apologize. He simply waves a dismissive hand. "Get out of my sight," he mutters. "All of you." You scramble to your feet and back out of the room, your legs shaking so badly you can barely stand. You have survived, but the experience has changed you forever. You have looked into the abyss. Historians often debate the tyranny of Henry VIII's later years. Was he a monster or a man driven mad by chronic pain? For you, the answer is irrelevant. You have learned the ultimate lesson of absolute monarchy. Justice, loyalty, and truth are all subordinate to the whim of the sovereign. Your power is real, but it is not your own. It is on loan, and that loan can be recalled at any moment, without reason or appeal. From this day forward, you will never again feel truly secure. You will listen, you will wield your influence, but you will always remember the terrifying feeling of the tiger's claws on your throat. The terror of the king's accusation fades, but it leaves behind a cold, hard pragmatism. You have seen how quickly your world can be upended. The abstract notion of power is not enough, you need something tangible. You need security. In the Tudor world, security means land, property, and wealth. It is time to convert your unique influence into something solid. You do not become a grasping, obvious supplicant. Your methods, like all your actions, are subtle and indirect. You have the king's ear during his most unguarded moments. You know his desires, his frustrations, and his vanities. This is the currency you will now spend. The process begins with the dissolution of the monasteries. The crown has seized a vast amount of land and wealth from the church. This land is now the king's to grant as he sees fit, a massive source of patronage to reward his loyal servants. You start to pay very close attention to which properties are available. During one of your private sessions with the king, he is complaining about the cost of maintaining a certain royal forest on the Welsh border. It's expensive, poorly managed, and generates little income. He mutters that it's more trouble than it's worth. This is your opening. You do not ask for the land. Instead, a few days later, you present him with a meticulously researched report, compiled with the help of a clerk you trust. The report details the exact costs of the forest's upkeep versus its meager revenue. It is a document of pure, cold logistics. At the end, it suggests that granting the stewardship of the forest to a loyal and frugal servant might save the crown a significant sum annually. You leave the report with him. You don't mention it again. A week later, the king, in a surprisingly good mood, says that forest in Wales. It's a mess. You seem to have a good head for this sort of thing. You take it, manage it. Just stop it from being a drain on my purse, and just like that, you are a landowner. You have your first piece of real, tangible wealth. You have not asked for a gift, you have presented yourself as a solution to one of the king's problems. This becomes your template. Your influence now extends to your family. You have a younger brother, a competent but remarkable man. You have a niece who needs a suitable husband. You can now help them. You learn about a minor administrative post that has become vacant. It's not a glamorous job, but it comes with a steady income. You wait for the opportune moment, when the king is feeling generous. And you mention that your brother is a hard-working man in need of a position. A casual word, dropped at the right time. The king grunts, and your brother's future is secured. For your niece, the process is more delicate. You identify a young courtier from a good family, a man who is ambitious but lacks the connections to advance. You use your position as gatekeeper to help him. You ensure his petition is seen by the king on a good day. You whisper a quiet word in his favor to a more senior lord. When he is granted a small favor, he is immensely grateful to you. You then, ever so subtly, suggest a match with your niece would be an excellent way to ally your families. You are not just arranging a marriage, you are building a network, a dynasty. One of the strangest ways you solidify your wealth is through the purchase of a wardship. This was a peculiar feudal right. If a major landowner died before his heir was of age, the crown had the right to take control of his lands and act as the child's guardian. These wardships could be bought and sold. For the guardian, It was a license to profit from the estate until the heir came of age. It was a cynical, exploitative system, but a common one. You use your savings and your access to the privy purse to purchase the wardship of a young, wealthy orphan. It's a grim business, profiting from a family's tragedy, but it is one of the primary ways that courtly insiders enriched themselves. Historians still study the records of the court of wards and liveries to trace the flow of wealth and power among the Tudor elite. You are becoming a rich man. You are no longer the frightened boy in a borrowed velvet doublet. You have manners, incomes, and a growing network of dependents. But you are careful. You do not flaunt your wealth. You still dress soberly. You still maintain your quiet, unassuming demeanor. You know that ostentation breeds envy, and envy is dangerous. Your power is now twofold. You have the intangible, ephemeral influence that comes from proximity to the king, and you have the solid, lasting power that comes from land and money. You have mastered the art of Tudor advancement. It's a quiet, patient, and ruthless game. You have learned that the best way to get what you want is not to ask for it, but to make yourself the indispensable solution to the problems of the powerful. You have turned service into profit, and intimacy into an empire. The years continue to pass, marked not by seasons, but by the king's accelerating decline. The magnificent, athletic monarch you first saw on the hunting field is gone, replaced by a man who is a prisoner in his own body. Henry is now immensely obese, so large that he often has to be moved around his palaces in a wheeled chair. His leg also is a perpetually open, foul-smelling wound that resists all treatment. The task of caring for him has become a monumental physical and emotional burden. Your role has evolved. You are no longer just the groom of the stool, you are head nurse, chief orderly, and primary caregiver to a declining lion. The physical demands are immense. Assisting the king with his movements, helping him dress, and managing his hygiene now requires the coordinated effort of several strong men whom you direct. The velvet-covered close stool, once a symbol of paradoxical power, is now simply a necessary and frequently used piece of medical equipment. The intimacy of your position deepens, but it is an intimacy born of necessity and suffering. You are the one he calls for in the middle of the night when the pain in his leg becomes unbearable. You spend countless hours in the close, stuffy air of the king's bedchamber, a room kept deliberately overheated to soothe his aches. The scent of the sick room, a cloying mixture of herbal poultices, sweat, and the ever-present odor of his suppurating wound clings to your clothes and your hair. You are the one who helps him eat. His appetite is often poor, but his doctors insist he must keep up his strength. You find yourself in the strange position of coaxing the King of England to take another bite of broth. Like a parent feeding a reluctant child, you see his frustration at his own helplessness, the flicker of shame in his eyes when he requires assistance with the most basic human functions. The psychological toll is immense. You are the sole confidant of a man in chronic, agonizing pain. His rages are more frequent, more terrifying, but they are often followed by periods of deep, black depression. He will sit in his chair for hours, staring into the fire, sometimes weeping in a way that would have been unthinkable in his youth. He mourns his lost strength, his lost virility. I was once the handsomest prince in Christendom, he might whisper to you, his voice thick with unshed tears. Look at me now. In these moments, you are not a servant or a courtier, you are simply a witness to a great man's tragedy. You offer what little comfort you can, a quiet word, a readjustment of his pillows, a cup of his favorite spiced wine. Your calm, unfathomable presence is his only constant in a world of pain and fear. This period brings into focus a little-known aspect of royal life, the sheer physical labor of monarchy. We think of kings and queens sitting on thrones, but the reality for their purse one of heavy lifting, cleaning, and constant, exhausting vigilance. The historical record is full of accounts of what kings did, but it rarely dwells on the physical work required to keep them going, especially when they were ill. Your unique position gives you a chillingly clear view of the end. You see the physicians gathered in worried knots, their whispered Latin consultations growing more frequent and more desperate. They try ever more extreme treatments, caustic ointments that make the king scream, strange new diets that he refuses to follow. They are as helpless as you are, but they cannot admit it. You, more than anyone, know the true state of his health. You know how little he sleeps, how much pain he is truly in, how his mind sometimes wanders into paranoid delusions. This knowledge is the most dangerous secret in England. The entire political world is holding its breath, waiting for the old lion to die, but no one dares to speak of it openly. Your own position has never been more secure or more perilous. Your power is directly tied to the king's life. You have his complete trust. Other powerful men at court, like the heads of the rising Seymour faction, treat you with immense respect, because they know you are the gatekeeper to the dying king. They need you to pass messages, to gauge his moods, to ensure their interests are protected in his final days. But you are also acutely aware that when the king dies, your unique power will vanish. You will be just another wealthy landowner, respected for your fortune but no longer at the center of the universe. The new king, young Edward, will have his own household, his own favorites. Your reign as the secret power behind the throne will be over. You look at the great, ailing man in the chair, this titan who has ruled your world for your entire adult life. You feel a complex mix of pity, fear, and a strange, deep-seated loyalty. You have served him through his triumphs and his tyrannies. You have shared his secrets and soothed his pain. Your journey, which began in a crowded, smelly hall, has led you to this quiet, somber room. You are bound to him, for better or for worse, until the very end. The palace holds its breath. The final act of the great play is unfolding, and the air in the privy chamber is thick with the scent of death and political maneuvering. The king is fading. Some days he is lucid, his mind as sharp as ever, issuing commands and debating with his council. On other days, he drifts in a haze of pain and confusion, his great voice reduced to a hoarse whisper. Your life is now a constant vigil. You barely sleep, cat-napping on a pallet in the antechamber, ready to be summoned at any moment. You are the chief guardian of the dying process, and your role has become almost priestly. You are the one who decides who gets to see him in his final weeks, a power that makes you both feared and courted by every ambitious man in the kingdom. The focus of all this anxiety is the succession. Everyone knows that Prince Edward, the king's long-awaited son, will inherit the throne. But Edward is just a boy. The real question is who will rule in his name. The court has fractured into desperate factions, each trying to secure a dominant position in the coming regency. The Seymour brothers, uncles to the young prince, are making their move. They are positioning themselves to become the leaders of the new government. You see them constantly, their faces a mask of somber concern, but their eyes sharp and calculating. They speak to you in low, respectful tones, treating you as an equal because they need you. They need you to ensure that the king's final will and testament reflects their own ambitions. The will. This single document is now the most important object in England. The king has been working on it for weeks, making changes, adding codicil less. You have been there for much of it, a silent presence in the room as he dictates his wishes to his secretaries. You know what it contains. You know who is named to the Regency Council, who is granted lands and titles, and who is pointedly left out. This knowledge makes you a target. The Duke of Norfolk, the old Catholic line and head of the rival Howard faction, is desperate. He knows the Seymours are poisoning the king's mind against him. He tries to get a message to you, an appeal for you to speak a good word for him to the king. You politely but firmly refuse. Your loyalty is to the king's wishes, not to the factions tearing the court apart. To take a side now would be suicide. You witness a chilling example of the Seymours' ruthlessness. They manage to convince the dying king that Norfolk and his son, the poet Earl of Surrey, are plotting against him. The accusation is flimsy, based on Surrey's foolish use of a royal crest, but in the paranoid atmosphere of the court, it is enough. Surrey is executed, and his father, the Duke, is imprisoned in the Tower, saved from the block only by the king's own death. You see how quickly the ascendant power is cleaning the board for their new reign. A strange and often overlooked detail of this period is the role of the king's dry stamp, the device used to forge his signature. In his final days, the king is often too weak to sign documents himself. A small, select group of men, including a trusted gentleman of the Privy Chamber, is given authority to use the stamp. This is the ultimate delegation of royal power. The men who control the stamp can, in theory, make the king's will say whatever they want. Historians still fiercely debate how much the final version of Henry's will was his own true wish, and how much was influenced by the Seymouress, who controlled access to him and the stamp in his last hours. You are a direct observer of this process. You see the documents brought for stamping. You see the quiet, confident authority of the Seymour faction. You say nothing. You do nothing. You are a ghost in the machine. Your face a mask of professional neutrality. But you know that the future of England is being decided in these quiet, desperate moments with a piece of metal and a pot of ink. One evening the king is surprisingly lucid. He asks for you. He is propped up on his pillows, the great bulk of him barely a silhouette. He looks at you, his eyes clear for the first time in days. They are all vultures, he says, his voice a dry rustle, circling, waiting for me to die. He pauses, breathing with difficulty. You have been a faithful servant, more faithful than many of these great lords. You bow your head, unable to speak. See that the boy is safe, he whispers. Edward. He has a kingdom to rule, but he is soft. He needs strong men around him, but not as strong. It is the last piece of political advice he will ever give, a final, weary summary of the paradox of power. And he gives it to you, his groom of the stool. You know the end is near. The lawyers and the priests are always close now. The great drama of Henry VIII's reign is coming to a close, not with a bang, but with a series of ragged, painful breaths in a stuffy, candlelit room. And you are there, as you have been for years, to witness it all. The final hours are a blur of hushed whispers and flickering candlelight. The Archbishop Thomas Cranmer is summoned. He arrives, his face etched with a deep, somber gravity. You stand in the corner of the bedchamber, a silent, motionless sentinel, as the priest leans in close to the dying king. You cannot hear the words, but you see the king weakly grasp the archbishop's hand. A stillness descends upon the room. The great lion of England, the man who had bent the nation to his will, is gone. For a long moment, no one moves. The silence is profound, heavy with the weight of a concluded era. Then, the carefully constructed machine of succession clicks into gear. Sir Anthony Denny, a gentleman of the Privy Chamber and a key ally of the Seymouress, leans over the bed and, with a ceremonial flourish, removes the signet ring from the king's cooling finger. It is a powerful, symbolic act. The personal authority of the monarch is officially transferred. The king is dead. Long live the king. For you, this moment is a strange and hollow anticlimax. Your entire adult life has been defined by the man who now lies still in the great bed. Your power, your purpose, your daily routine, it was all tied to his life, his breath, his needs. And now, in an instant, it is all gone. The sun at the center of your universe has been extinguished. The news is kept secret for a few days, a common practice to allow the new regime to solidify its power before announcing the monarch's death to the public. During this strange twilight period, the palace operates as if nothing has happened. Meals are prepared for the deceased king, his guards guard his empty chamber. It's a bizarre piece of political theater, and you are one of the lead actors. You continue to go about your duties in the Privy Chamber, maintaining a facade of normality, while knowing that everything has changed. You watch the Seymouress move with swift, decisive efficiency. They secure the person of the young King Edward, bringing him to the Tower for his own protection. They consolidate their control over the Regency Council, using the authority of the late king's will they so carefully helped to shape as their legal foundation. The transition is seamless, ruthless, and brilliant. Your own role in this new world is uncertain. You are now the former groom of the stool. The title is meaningless. You are a relic of a bygone era. You are immensely wealthy, thanks to the lands and titles you so shrewdly acquired, but your intimate, personal power has evaporated. You walk through the corridors of the palace, the same corridors you once guarded as a nervous young usher. The new courtiers, the young men flocking to the rising sun of the Seymouress, look at you with a mixture of curiosity and irrelevance. You are a ghost from the old reign, a man who knew the old lion's secrets. This makes you both interesting and slightly dangerous. It is time to disappear. You make your formal retirement from court. There is no fanfare. You simply pack your belongings, say your quiet goodbyes, and ride away. You leave the noise, the intrigue, and the stench of the palace behind you. You ride towards your own lands, the estates you acquired through years of patient, silent service. As you travel, you reflect on your incredible journey. You, the son of a minor gentleman, who arrived at court with nothing but a new suit of clothes and a heart full of naive ambition. You learned the brutal rules of the game. You embraced a role that others would have found humiliating and turned it into a source of unimaginable power. You think about the central, absurd paradox of your life. You rose to the heights of influence not by wielding a sword or making grand speeches, but by managing the most private, undignified aspects of a king's life. You were the keeper of the royal bowels, the silent witness to the royal pain. You were the ultimate insider, your power forged in a crucible of intimacy and bodily fluids. Historians will write about the great battles, the queens, the ministers. They will never know the full story. They will never know about the stool talk, the secrets whispered in moments of vulnerability that subtly shaped the course of history. Your story is a testament to a forgotten kind of power, the power of proximity, discretion, and the unflinching willingness to do the necessary, however unpleasant. You have survived, and in the brutal, glittering world of the Tudor court, that is the only victory that truly matters. You have played the game, and you have won. The sun is setting as you finally see the outline of your own manor house in the distance, its stone walls glowing warm in the fading light. A sense of peace, an emotion you haven't felt in decades, settles over you. The air here is clean, filled with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. It is the smell of home. The frantic, competitive energy of the court feels a world away, a fever dream from another lifetime. You are no longer a servant to a king, but a master of your own domain. The exhausting performance is over. As you ride up the path, you feel the tension that has been coiled in your shoulders for 30 years begin to unwind. Here there are no factions to navigate, no royal tempers to soothe, no secrets to keep. There is only the rhythm of the seasons, the management of your lands, the quiet dignity of a life well earned. The silence is no longer a tool of survival, but a welcome companion. You have walked through the very heart of history, a silent shadow at the elbow of greatness. You have seen the raw, unvarnished machinery of power, and you carry its secrets within you. But now, that chapter is closed. The night is drawing in, cool and quiet. A single light appears in the window of your house, a beacon of welcome. You have come home. The end of the article. Good night.